Okay, good evening, everyone. Let me just do a quick check. And Venkat, can you hear me? Do I have audio?
Hear you very well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Good evening to all of our participants and welcome to Toastmasters District 57 Masterclass on using a club newsletter to inform and impress. My name is Patricia Dessa. I am the voice behind the line that says District 57 and the face. And I want to thank you and welcome you for being here today. We're going to get started and I'm going to introduce our speaker in just a few moments. But first, I wanted to go over a few logistics with you. This masterclass is being recorded and there will be a recording link available on the District 57 website soon after, probably tomorrow or the next day at the earliest. In terms of questions and answers, there's first going to be about a 30 to 35 minute presentation by Venkat. And then there will be about 20 minutes of discussion. So I would ask you to please save your questions for when we get to that discussion time, or if you have a question you'd like to ask before then to make sure that we get it, please type it into the chat box that will be monitored. The way that the mute works is that everybody is currently on mute, and when we get to the discussion section, I will give you the ability to unmute yourself, which you will be welcome to do to ask a question or share a comment. At this time, I'm going to ask Venkat to please start sharing his slides while I introduce him. I'm also going to ask everybody in the audience a question that Venkat would like answered in preparation for his presentation. And the question is, what does a newsletter mean to you? So if you could type your answer in the chat box. Venkat, when he starts his presentation, or in the course of his presentation, will refer to some of your responses as he's presenting. So once again, please type into the chat box the answer to the question, what does a newsletter mean to you? And I see that a couple of folks are already doing that, which is great. By way of introduction, Venkat Raman is currently the District 57 newsletter editor and has held this position since January of 2019. He's been a Toastmaster since 2014 when he joined City Speech Toastmasters in Fremont as a member. He has been a club officer continuously since 2015. Outside of his club, he's served in various leadership roles such as area director, club sponsor, club coach, and YLP Youth Leadership Program coordinator. Venkat is a copywriter and understands the role newsletters play in any organization, nonprofit or for-profit. He started City Speech News, a weekly newsletter published by City Speech Toastmasters in 2018, before transitioning into the current district role in January 2019. As you can tell, he is quite credible on the topic in which he's about to speak. He is ready to share with you his perspective on newsletters today. Please help me welcome Venkat.
Thank you, Patricia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Excellent. And good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Thank you for joining me on this masterclass. As you can see, we are going to be talking about newsletters, and there will be a point when I will ask Patricia to share with me all the input that I got about what a newsletter means to you. We have a lot of material to cover, so I'm going to go right through the material and I will not skip any slide. And if something is apparently rushed, you always have a chance to replay when the time comes and then, slow down and take a look at it and or ask me questions during Q&A. So with that preface, let's dive in. Okay, today's agenda is what is a club newsletter? Why should we do a club newsletter? How to go about actually sending out a club newsletter? And how to make sure that we put together something that's worth sending out as a club newsletter? And why do we say, or how is it that a club newsletter is a PR tool? And after that, we will have some Q&A. And last but not the least, club newsletter contest info. You probably are aware that we have a newsletter contest going on, and I'll talk about that at the very end, after the Q&A before Patricia closes out the masterclass. Let's jump in. What's a club newsletter? Okay, at this point, it's a good time to find out what you have been saying. Patricia?
We have a lot of responses, so let me just quickly go through them.
You just pick a few.
Pick a few? Okay. A way to build community, an option that communicates with members and future members. A way for the club to communicate to its members and the community. A marketing tool, a way to spread words, news, and events. A communication tool to keep members and the public informed. A means of sharing information, which includes speaking tips, the latest from Toastmasters in our district, lauding members who have achieved their goals. A newsletter is information in a simple, digestible way, a way to learn and catch up. And let me just do a couple more here. To bring entertainment to a club, and a method to create interest in topics that are common to a group and to inform of events that are of common interest.
Okay, that's a wide variety of input. Thank you for that. And we will go through the slides and then we'll see where all they apply. I don't promise to have noted down every single thing, but I will address some of them. Okay, let me applaud one of the inputs that I got. It's a marketing tool. That's what I say. Wait, why is that? Are we talking about newsletters or marketing? The best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. Newsletters certainly don't feel like marketing, but they do marketing functionality for any business or any entity, including Toastmasters clubs. We'll see more about that later. More definition of what a club newsletter is in my mind. It's a periodic written communication. Every word here is important. It should be periodic. It should happen once in a while, every so often. And written, that's the kind that we are talking about today. We are talking about in specific email communication and communication. We all know about that as Toastmasters. But that covers a whole bunch of stuff. The scope has to be narrowed down some more. What is it? Of the club, by the club, and for the club. Definitely, a club newsletter is about the club. And typically, it's put out by a member of the club. That's when it becomes really authentic. And it's always for the club, the benefit of the club, eventually, even though it may not appear sometimes. We have some examples here. We go through a meeting minutes kind of thing that looks like a newsletter. That's really attractive. We have the City Speech News that I was doing in 2018. This was the City Speech Toastmasters Club newsletter. And we have Oakland Hills Toastmasters newsletter. This is way back in 2009. Our dear friend Dennis Neary was putting this out. And later he moved on to the area and he continued with area newsletter and then later with the division newsletter. And now we can also take a look at the district newsletter, which I am doing right now. This particular one is actually the very last newsletter that you should have received. Okay, those are the examples and gives you an idea. And why should we do a club newsletter? Many of the reasons that you have mentioned, build a community and communicate, or even for entertainment, yeah, they're all valid. And of course, a marketing tool, that's a important part also. But if you have looked at the title, then you would guess that it is to inform and to impress. And I'm going to sneak in a third one, improve. Okay, what does it mean? Inform. Of course, it's just educating everybody about what's going on in the club. It captures the club culture. And if you were archiving the newsletters, it records the history. And all the members receive it. Therefore, everybody has a chance to be up to date on what's happening at the club. We know very well that not all members attend all meetings, so they don't have to lose out. And prospective members can do research on the club and feel good about joining. Okay, impress, what does that mean? Shows the club as active. Shows the club. Nobody needs to tell anything. It's self-evident when you chronicle everything correctly. And members like it because typical newsletter that is well constructed will have acknowledgement about the member achievements. So when anytime somebody looks at their name and finds that they have been acknowledged, they like it. And members see other members are achieving things, and they want to do the same. And so they want to elevate their situation. And persuades guests in the sense that when the guests look at how well the club is operating by way of looking at the newsletters, it'll persuade them basically to be more interested in the club. Improve, what does that mean? For one thing, because you have to put out the newsletter, you become a writer, or maybe you are already a writer, but you become a better writer. Practice makes perfect. And members aim higher. Members who will see other people achieving, they want to achieve higher things. So if everybody tries that, and it's a cycle that elevates the club as higher achieving, and more potential guests improve the number of guests that might be potentially interested. And that's the marketing side. We'll see how that works later. Okay, now we get down to how to actually publish a club newsletter. How do you actually send it out? Prepare and send it out. There are two main things I want to talk about today, which is creating a PDF version of the newsletter and creating a direct newsletter. What do I mean by these? A PDF is a carefully constructed document of a number of pages, prepared like a flyer or a booklet or something, and then sent out through email as attachment, or you place a PDF somewhere on a website and then send a link over in the email. One way or the other, the PDF is the newsletter. Email is just the transport mechanism. Direct is also emails, but the email actually contains the newsletter. You don't have to go anywhere. You receive the email, you open it up, you start reading. So those are the two styles that I want to talk about, and we'll go from there. PDF. We are talking nuts and bolts here. So this is only one of the possible ways you can do. I'm suggesting something that's fairly easy to do and will work. I'm not saying that there is no other way to do it. So there's no time for us to consider all possible combinations. So let's say you create a Google group. I say Google, but you can do Yahoo or any group that you can think of. And this kind of group is just a collection of email addresses to which an email is sent when you send one email to this group. That's the basic nature of it. And what would it contain? It contains all club members and anyone else that you know may be interested in your club. Maybe they were guests at some point, or maybe they reached out to you at some point and asked for information, but never attended a meeting, but still they showed some interest. There are all kinds of different reasons why you would join somebody in the group. And then for each newsletter issue, you sit down at your computer, create a Word doc, put information in there worthy of newsletter material, and it's all happening on your local system, local computer, and then print it as PDF, save it, and email the PDF as attachment to a Google group. Or you don't have to attach it, you can put it on your, post it on your website, and then the email that you send to the Google group will have a link to the posted PDF. That's one way of doing things. The direct is you sign up for a MailChimp account. I say MailChimp for a reason. We'll look at why I'm saying that later on. It's MailChimp, if you're not familiar with it. It's a mail service provider. What does that mean? It's basically, it's an online facility for you to define a bunch of audience and then work on constructing communication to be sent over to those audience. Very similar to what we are trying to do. It's all online. It's a cloud-based service. And so sign up for it. It's free. Let me say that right off the bat. At least a version of it is free. And then set up a recipient list in the MailChimp. So you up same list, all club members and anyone. I say here guests, but then it can be anyone even beyond guests. And once you do that, for each newsletter issue, you don't open up Word document. You don't fill a Word document, but you actually log in, connect to MailChimp, and compose a MailChimp campaign. They call it campaign, but it's basically a document in your view. And once you finish that, you look it over. It's all good. Then send it over. That's that is a paradigm for direct one. So obviously there has to be some pros and cons. So I want to quickly go through this, not spend too much time on it. PDF is simple because most of us know how to work with Word. So it's no big deal to create one. Low learning curve because some of us may or may not be familiar with Google Groups or Yahoo Groups. And if you are in that situation, you have to learn a little bit about it. It's not a big learning curve. Easy list maintenance. If you know something about groups, you know how easy it is to maintain. You just have to add new members and remove members and stuff like that. Cons, it does have some limitations. Collaboration is hard. What do I mean by collaboration? If you need to work on the newsletter, more than one person need to work on it, then it's difficult to share the document. You have to create one version, send it over, and then wait for them to edit it and then send it back to you and all that stuff. That kind of collaboration is not easy. It can be done, but it's not easy. And also the nature of the mailing list, when you go through the Google Groups or Yahoo Groups, is all or nothing. When you send something to the mailing list, it turns around and ships it to all the people that are in the mailing list. So it works, but it doesn't work as well as it could. Direct is everything that you really wanted. It's versatile because it's really robust and feature rich. It can track and analyze performance. Like it can tell you reports of how many people opened. In fact, who opened it. You can find up to that level, and also look at what links were popular, who clicked, which links got clicked more than the others, and stuff, so on and so forth. It also shares a easy list maintenance feature. List segmentation is deciding which of your audience members you want to send a particular campaign to. It's something that is really useful, and we don't have time to discuss that, but those are all things that you want in the service provider. Easy collaboration because it's all online. All you need to do is give the other person access to the document with their credentials. And the negative things are it's steeper learning curve. It takes longer to understand the full offering, what MailChimp offers. Theme customization would take longer. The default theme is going to work for most people, but then if you're not happy with how it looks, if you want to change something, you have to spend some time understanding how to change the theme. So all in all, I recommend the direct approach. Even though it's an upfront investment, it'll help you in the long run. Now we come to, okay, we know how to send the newsletter, but what do we put in the newsletter so we can feel good about sending it? For PDF, I have a bunch of stuff here. You have a header, you have content, of course. And then the important part of the content is it's nice to have a table of contents and up front. So it tells you, especially PDF, you have a tendency to have multiple pages, and a table of contents will tell you something about where everything resides. Often I find that there's no footer, and no footer is really needed, but it's nice to have a footer if you can. A number of columns is a feature. It's not a requirement either way, but typically when we say newsletter, we think of 2-column, 3-column and all that. But let's take a look at some examples here. Okay, the first one is a 2-column newsletter with a nice table of contents right up front. And you can see the header there, which contains identification of what the newsletter is about, and including the publication date and some information about the meeting locations and stuff like that. Second one is the area newsletter, which doesn't have the club meeting location information that's necessary, but it has other stuff in it. And it also looks different. You can see that it's almost like a single column newsletter, except for the sidebar. And if you look at the sidebar, it's not the content of the newsletter that's there. It's more like the table of contents and other allied information. So this properly qualifies as a single column newsletter. The third one, which is really not a newsletter, but it looks like a newsletter, which can be easily refined to be a newsletter, is meeting meeting minutes kind of thing, which is in 3 columns. It's very attractive with a photograph and real reports of what happened in the meeting. The thing that makes it not a newsletter is that there's no identification of the publication date of this one. It's more like it's tying it back into the event date that it's describing. So it's really a meeting minutes kind of thing. But no matter. What do you do once you have a PDF newsletter? Let's take a look at a simple option we have. A simple email, attach a PDF, add a table of contents. What do I mean by that? Take the table of contents from the PDF or the material, the Word document, and actually reproduce it in the email, and then add a footer. Why do I say that? Take a look. When an email like this comes, this is a fake email. Don't hold me to this one. This is a fake email on many counts. Let me try and laser pointer. Okay. This one will not be my name in the real thing. It will be something like your club name or club name space newsletter or something like that. And this one will be just a Google Groups address or Yahoo Groups address. It will not be individual. And the attachment and the dear subscriber should go, and you should replace it with some meaningful headline that makes the email read better. And this is what I mean. If you give the table of contents right here, when somebody receives it, even though this is not the newsletter, they will be interested in opening the PDF because they know what they will find there. And I'm hoping that the contents will interest them. And that's how we construct the newsletter. And then, of course, because it's a simple email, you sign with your signature, and the footer is also fake because the last line you don't have to say because the Google Groups will take care of it. The line before that, you might want to say that. So that's how you deal with PDF. Oh, one thing I forgot to say is in the body of the email, instead of saying that you have attached it, you can give a link to wherever you placed it in case that's how you want to go. And because we are talking about email newsletters, let's do a very quick walkthrough of the email components: from, to, subject, preview text, and body. From and to, we are so familiar with it. So always use a display name and an email address like this, district fits and news, and this one, and so on and so forth. Even for the recipients, if you can, if you know their name, use that same format. That we are very used to that. Subject and preview text, let me show you what happens. This is the District 57 March newsletter that came to me. I pulled it up in Gmail. This is how it's listed. And I also pulled it up in Outlook. And this is how it's listed there. You see the third line, which is missing in the Gmail listing. That is the preview text. So some mail clients will show you that, and some mail clients won't. So when you prepare the email, it's actually to your benefit to be able to add the preview text because that's extra space you can use to convince somebody to be interested in the email. And if you don't use it, what happens? It looks like this. This is some random email I got where they did not use the preview text, and you'll see a blank line there. It's wasted space in some sense. Body is nothing new here. The body must have a header, a content, and footer. We are talking about email. They're all important parts. The header is mostly fixed. You design the header for your newsletter, and then it stays fixed until you have to change it for some reason. Except it's mostly fixed. One part of it will identify the actual issue date and volume number and issue number and all that. You will see that in these examples. The volume, this one, and here. You'll also have the same thing. And when you are doing a PDF thing, PDF sent through an email, this header does not apply in the email. It'll happen in the PDF itself. And then footer must offer unsubscribe option. That's the only real required thing. You can add other things that are nice to do, but this is really required. But you don't have to worry about it because it's automated when you use Google Groups or MailChimp or any similar services. And this is an example of the City Speech News header and footer, District 57 News header and footer. Email newsletter content. How do you do that? MailChimp. This is a disclaimer that this masterclass is not about explaining the MailChimp layout options. You have to investigate that on your own, or we can have a separate masterclass about how to use MailChimp for a newsletter. But let me give you a glimpse of all the widgets that you have under your control to compose your MailChimp newsletter. This is direct. So when you choose text and put it in, it creates a text area where you can type in something or the other, and like that. And this is a hint before we go on. I have been just using text, box test, and divider for the most part. Occasionally I will use something else, but that will be enough. You don't have to worry about other stuff. And one important tip is that when you design your header, try to choose a header that uses text as opposed to image. In City Speech News, this is all text. So when some of the mail clients show you the email, they suppress loading the images until you ask them to be loaded. Or if you have pre-configured the client to be loading everything automatically. I, for one, do not load my images in Outlook. This is how it looks if you have images for the header and even in the body. It's just something that you can think of. If you have large items like an article, 500-word article, 1,000-word article, or something like that of interest to the club members, if you post it right in the newsletter, it becomes unwieldy. So the recommendation is that you post it on your website and just put a link to that article in your newsletter with a little blurb around it so that people can get interested in following the link to read the full article. This is a quick glimpse of it. I don't want to go through that. This is a real digest, which doesn't give too much information about each of the articles. And this one, which is our district newsletter, it gives you the link to follow video or something else, but it also gives you enough of a text for you to be interested in that or decide, oh, that doesn't interest me at all, stuff like that, instead of relying just on the headline. And this just says the same thing. Okay. Common content tips means that these tips are useful whether you are going with the PDF approach or direct approach. You have to balance the text and images. You have to have enough text to make it useful, but you don't want it to overwhelm with text. You want images too. And you don't want to overwhelm with images. Too many images and not enough text is also not that interesting. Sometimes it is, sometimes, most often it's not as a newsletter. So for best engagement, you need to balance the text and images. There is no rule for it. It's more like you compose it, you look at it and see if it looks good to you and then move on. I mean, if you are worried about having material to put into the newsletter, easiest is to draw on the meeting contents. You have so much happening in a meeting. Prepared speeches, meeting theme, word of the day, table topics. Some people may have done some interesting stuff there. And anything else that happened in the meeting, maybe you had a guest speaker or something like that. You know what's going on in the meetings. So capture that and include member achievements. Members achieve different things at different times. Different members do that. So make sure you acknowledge all of them at the right time, soon after their achievements, once you know. Level and path completions, Triple Crown, OATM, contest wins, they're all applicable. Club achievements. Club may be a DCP recipient. You may have, your club may have completed 5 goals very early in the game. So you say that we are all set to be a distinguished club. We only need to make sure we have 20 members. You can say that. And later on, if you know that you have 20 members signed up through to September, and you have enough DCP points, even though Toastmasters.org hasn't yet recognized you, you can say that because you know that will happen. Things like that. Add member-focused articles. You pick some member of your club. You write an article about them after interviewing them and getting some interesting information about them so that the rest of the members get to know one of the members better. I know Icebreaker is supposed to do that, but that's very short. An article like this can go deeper. On the flip side, have a member contribute article to you as an editor so that they write the material, their perspective, their feelings, their take on things, and then you edit it and then include it into the club newsletter. Scour the district website for news and articles. I used to do that regularly when I was doing a club newsletter. A lot of times club members don't even know where the district website is. And when you do that, they benefit because they get to know information that are only available on the district website, and they would have never known otherwise. Even though it's available to them, many people don't go there. So if you do that, that's a big service to them. Swap articles with fellow club newsletter editors. Once you get to know other newsletter editors in the district, you can maintain contact. You can find out, you can get subscription to their newsletters if they would be amenable to sending you. And if you find some nuggets in there, there may be some inspirational story, something like that. Ask their permission and reprint them in your newsletter. And that will actually educate your own members and your own guests and stuff like that. Of course, always remember to give proper credit where the material came from. Well, we cannot exhaust all the things that you can do. Keep an open mind and do as situation warrants. Okay, we went through 4 of those, and now we are ready to see how a club newsletter can be a PR tool. For that, I put together, to deal with how it's doing public relations towards non-members, I put together the quick handwritten whiteboard video. So let's take a listen. Let's take a look at how newsletters help with public relations. You want to promote your Toastmasters club. You likely have a club website that gives a lot of good information about your club. You should, if you don't have one. Once someone finds a page of yours like that, the content there hopefully drives them to attend a meeting at your club. You can take it from there and pursue their membership. The big question is how anybody would find a page or your website in the first place. That is a topic for a whole another masterclass. But for our purposes, let's just focus on this. The more you populate your site with relevant material and also keep it updated with fresh content, the search engines will like you better. So how about this? Every time you publish a newsletter issue, you add it to the site. Every time. This would mean a steady stream of fresh content. It also means that your website is accumulating more and more relevant material over time. All of this represents inbound marketing for your club. But the newsletters particularly shine in outbound marketing. The idea is simple. Once you got someone on your mailing list, they start receiving regular public speaking related information, and especially how your club delivers it well. Each issue goes out. Over time, some of the people on your list will be open to visiting your club. But how do you get people on the mailing list in the first place? I can think of 3 ways. 1, if they found your website, give them an option to sign up for your newsletter there. 2, if they visit your club meeting, get their email address and add it to the list. 3, in each newsletter, ask the reader to forward it to others. This will spread the word and may get you more subscribers. There you have it. This combination of inbound and outbound marketing is how newsletters can do double duty and help you with your public relations effort. That was directed towards non-members, towards member acquisition. And now we are looking at what does it do for members. The PR is in red because it's private relationship, if you will indulge me. So let's take a quick look at what it does to members. Creates club awareness, as we know. Everybody is informed. Promotes a sense of belonging because their names will appear sometimes, and it's a clan, and they like it, builds goodwill, and they may remain the members of the club if they like what they see there. I mean, newsletter is only one part of it. Club experience is important, but newsletters add to it. Okay, we have done all 5 items. Now it's time for Q&A, right? Well,
yes.
let me sneak in one more. Putting it all together, it's very important that we close it out properly. Okay, random thoughts on newsletters. One of the things that you may wonder about is why they work, how the newsletters actually work in general, not just club newsletters. Persistency, they keep coming. Regularity, they keep coming at regular intervals, which more or less builds some sort of an expectation and even excitement sometimes on the recipient side. Relevance, because that is very important for it to be accepted. And call to action. Your newsletters really should have a call to action. And once the recipients keep receiving them, after some time, they'll be favorable to taking that action. Why MailChimp? It is a mature platform, but it has a free plan. I don't know of any other mail service provider that gives you such a generous free plan, and especially such a well-developed platform for that. If I remember right, you can send 12,000 campaigns in a month free. What does that mean? It means for the Toastmasters Club, it means that it's never going to cost you money. Frequency, match the meeting frequency. If your club meets every week, have a weekly newsletter. That way, what happens is you don't have to think of too many things to say. You can keep the newsletter short. You can cover what happened in the previous meeting, and you can get a glimpse of the next meeting to the extent of all that may happen is next meeting, our meeting theme is going to be this, and what of the day is going to be this, something like that. So that kind of connection can be maintained week after week after week. And once the initial thing passes, churning out weekly newsletters may not be all that difficult. But if you make it monthly, then you have to collect information from 4 meetings and then do the same thing. Sometimes it will give you a lot of weeks of rest, but it might also give you more work. And content policy, we already saw that. Putting it all together, the last thing, there are 3 steps. Decide the platform and frequency. My recommendation is direct and matched to meeting frequency. But you can do whatever you feel like. Maybe direct is too much investment for you, so you may want to start with the PDF approach, and the frequency, you are the boss. You can decide. Once you decide something, do the initial setup. It's sometimes non-trivial. You have to set up various things and set them up correctly. The footer has to say the right thing. The header has to be designed correctly and stuff like that. Do that once. And then this is the 3rd step, is a repeating step. Start publishing, create, review, publish, create, review, publish. Keep doing that. Questions?
Okay, I am going to give everyone the ability to unmute themselves. And as folks are thinking of questions and unmuting, I just wanted to share a couple of things that are in the chat box, Venkat. So
Okay.
a couple of comments first from Susie, who back when you were talking about publishing the newsletter, she suggested you could also use Google Docs and export it to a PDF and collaborate with others on the document before exporting.
Yep.
So that was a comment. She
Yep.
had another comment and suggestion or idea that it would be great if the district culled together content for newsletters so each chapter or club doesn't have to go look for content separately.
Okay.
Just a thought. So not sure if something like that already exists. And then one question from Sandhya had to do with when you were talking about designing the newsletter. She just wanted to clarify, were you suggesting to create a specific email ID for the newsletter?
Yeah. Okay. I didn't explicitly say that. Yes, the Gmail, most mail services are free these days, so that you can actually come up with a club email address or even the functional email address, like City Speech Toastmasters at gmail.com is a general email address. For the newsletter, I could have dreamt up something like cityspeechnews at gmail.com. What we ended up doing was, because we have a domain name, I chose a slightly different path. But if you don't have a domain name for your club, you can still just use Gmail, but just choose a name that is more meaningful in terms of being the newsletter email ID. And of course, the display name, you won't use any of that. You will just use the newsletter identification. Yes.
Okay, great. At this time, I'd just like to open it up, and you should have the ability to unmute yourself. So just remember to do that before you start speaking.
Before we move on, I just wanted to say, I was collecting the comments, and I do appreciate the comment about Google Docs, and I did think of that, but I know from experience that some people, there is a little bit of a learning curve there, but it's actually a very useful. I use Google Docs all the time, and that will solve the collaboration issue. And yes, and you can export as PDF and everything. It's all good. So that is a very valid point. Thank you.
Okay, other questions for Venkat?
I have a question, Venkat. Are you able to measure engagement using MailChimp to try to see kind of, whether, recipients click on a certain links, or are you able to track like what makes a more kind of popular article?
Yes and no. If you have a free version of MailChimp, obviously they're not going to give you a full complement of facilities like that. But you can get open information, open rate you can get overall. But when you drill down, you can actually see who all opened the mail. That is available. As far as clicking, the specific people who click on specific links, you cannot get that. You can get how many times a particular link has been clicked. And so that way you can rank it based on which links are more popular than the others. And if it's in a paid service, they actually give a map of, you can bring up the document, and then if you have multiple links all over the place, they give you indication of what percentage of the whole click-throughs happen using which link. So that's actually very descriptive.
And based on your experience, have you been able to track like maybe what makes a something more popular, or what kind of content, or how to phrase it maybe? Or...
I think okay, the overarching statement that I can make is that if you want links to be followed, it's up to you to come up with a description around the link that doesn't give away the store, but makes it sufficiently curious. You give enough information. You don't be too skimpy in the wording around it. You give enough of a context and make them get curious about what else may be there. And when you have achieved that, that's when the click-through really soars. Because if you think about it, they read it, and obviously there is enough material text to read and not overwhelming. And then they read, and then you constructed it in such a way that it's curiosity provoking, and they can't help themselves. They'll click on it. Of course, there are some topics that are not at all resonating with some of the people, so they'll look at it and it's curiosity provoking, but they're not interested in the topic, so they don't click it. So it's a mixture of both.
Great, thank you.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
What are the concerns or issues regarding privacy? That has come up in our club.
Yes, privacy-wise, the caution that you have to take is make sure you have, how shall I put it? Make sure you have a tracking for why you are adding somebody on the list, mailing list. That's one thing. There is if you are familiar with GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation that came out of Europe. It's not yet a law in the US, but it's a good idea, good practice. So we should follow that.
Depends on what state you're in. Some of the regulations have already come forward, but no, I'm talking about questions having to do with using club members' names, or any guidance regarding that. I'm familiar with the GDPR.
Okay. Okay, that's one concern, but the privacy concerns do exist when you use a photograph and put an image in there. I think, for example, when we go to conferences and large gatherings, I understand, I mean, I haven't actually verified it in print, but I understand that part of your registration, the considerations, like rules, say that you are giving up your privacy when you say you want to attend a conference.
Yeah, so you're giving your permission to be photographed and recorded. I know about that, yeah.
Right, so that doesn't concern the thing. So with the club thing, when you really seriously get into newsletters, it is important to announce it and get buy-in. There's some documented evidence that everybody has agreed to that. And if somebody really doesn't want to be photographed and represented in the newsletter, you have to respect that. Privacy considerations are more important than publicity.
Of course, thank you.
Sure.
Venkat, there was a comment in the chat box from Lisa. I think this was in reference to MailChimp and tracking usage. And the comment was, in the past, in the free version, she was able to see who clicked on the links within the email and how many times.
Who clicked on the link and how many times? I have to go back and check. I have tried that and I don't think I got that. But anyway, I don't mind having an offline discussion with that and then updating something somewhere so that, if people listen to the recording, they have a place to go and get updated information. But I don't think so, but I may be wrong.
Yeah, and she was referring to a past version, so maybe not possible in the current. And now she's saying they may have reduced the free services since last year. Great, thanks, Lisa. I'm not sure how to pronounce. And any other questions? We still have time. Venkat, I have one question. Earlier you were talking about on the design, the balance between text and images. And you said to have a balance, but do you have a recommendation for how much text versus how much images? Is there a percentage that we should be paying attention to?
I don't have a real percentage, but what I try to do with the district website these days is to have 25-75 split of each box. The left side is dedicated to images and the right side is dedicated to text. And the images will not occupy the entire, if you imagine the box to have a height and a width, and the width is split into 25-75 percentages, and the height is full, right, for each side. The image will not start at the top and go right up to the bottom. It will be somewhere there. There's only one image I put for each story. And then on the right side, I'll have text, descriptive text, and also links that take you to the articles or whatever else. Previously, when I used to embed the full articles into the newsletter, what I would try to do is have one image per story, except when the story is so long that, it's nice to have context sensitive images. Like, if the story takes you through multiple things, segments of the conference, for example, then you can have different images of the conference and then put it at the right place and not take up the whole width of the thing, but shrink it enough so that, the text flows around it, and all the different design considerations apply. But as far as percentages are concerned, I try to stay with one image per story, unless the story is so big that it warrants multiple images. And once in a while, the story may be about something interesting happening and it warrants a whole gallery of images. And that's fine. Once in a while, you can do that.
Great. And just tacking on a quick question, and then we'll have to start moving to close. Carolyn is asking, what newsletter is more successful, one with images or one without, just words? Oh.
I have heard different takes on it. People seem to like putting images in there, and it all depends on the context. In Toastmasters club newsletters, I think images do play a part. It's all about building relationships, and it's nice to see a lot of faces, and it'll be good to have that. Again, maybe 1 or 2 pictures per newsletter, or per story, I think. One picture per story, and then if you have multiple stories, then some of them will have pictures of images. And there is another camp that I know that depending on the message, depending on the audience, a lot of times straight text works really well as long as you construct the text sufficiently well. It has to be a story that people cannot stop reading. They don't care about images. They get engrossed in the story, and then they go on like that. But for Toastmaster clubs, I think there should be some images.
So what I'm hearing is know your audience, and then maybe also try a few different things, maybe different iterations, and see what works well for that audience.
Exactly, exactly.
Thank you, Venkat. I'm going to go ahead and move us towards closing. We have 3 quick things to cover, so please do.
I have, oh, you are going to give me some time, right?
Yes, I am going to give you some time. First, I wanted to just go over some quick logistics. There is a survey for this masterclass that we would love for you to complete. Give us some quick feedback. It's just 5 questions. It helps us improve for the next time. And the link to the survey should be popping up in the chat really soon. And it's also going to be sent out after this meeting. So please do take just a few minutes to complete the survey. This meeting, or this masterclass, has been recorded, and once again, it will be available at the Toastmasters District 57 website. There's a special masterclass page. Here's a screenshot of it. If you go to the District 57 website under Member Resources, you'll see a tab that says Masterclasses in Communication and Leadership. So that's the #1 question I get, is a recording available? And yes, it will be available by tomorrow or the next day, and it will be on this site. And then if you have any questions, please contact the email address on your screen, and I'd be happy to answer them. Venkat is going to say a few words about the newsletter contest that's coming up, and then I have a plug and a teaser for our next masterclass. And some of that will be shared by the presenter himself. So please do stick around for that. And then we'll close. Venkat, back to you.
Thank you. Do I need to share again? Share screen?
Yes.
Okay, here we are. Proceeding. Oh. Okay. We have taken care of all the bullets there and Q&A, and we are going into the contest info. This will be quick. If you have seen the district newsletter before, many of this should be familiar to you already. The deadline for the newsletter contest is May 31st of this year. And where to submit? Obviously, it's supposed to be an email, and you have to submit it to club-newsletter@d57tm.org. And what you should submit is minimum of 2 newsletter issues, and at least 1 in May. Of course, that's almost a given. If you have a weekly newsletter, you will have no problem submitting 2 newsletters. If you have a monthly newsletter, you will have a problem. So the way I'm recommending that you solve the problem is assign an April newsletter. And if it takes you beyond April 30th for the first issue, you just say something in the newsletter saying that you listen to the newsletter masterclass, and then you wanted to do a monthly newsletter, but you ran out of time. So it still captures all the events and happenings in April. And even though it's being sent in early May, like first week of May or something like that, that's fine. But I still insist on 2 issues so that you go through the setup process, and you also experience a regular process of doing something, and then you may improve the newsletter contents right off the bat in the second iteration or something like that. We would like to see all that happening, not just 1 issue, but at least 2 issues. So again, that's what is the thing. And then this is the good part. There are incentives for people who are entering the contest. So 3 clubs will be chosen based on the entries and the judging. The club that wins the first place for the best newsletter submitted wins $100 in Toastmasters gift certificates. Second place, $75, and third place, $50. This is very similar to other contests we have run. And here's the kicker. There is a winning editor who will get an Amazon gift card. $25 Amazon gift card for the first place only. We don't have 3. And the judging will happen in June, and it's all coming out of this year's budget. So it'll all be judged and prizes awarded in June 2020. And there are just a few rules. Email newsletters only. It's no surprise. And email submissions to that address must be exact replicas of what is sent to the club members. The easiest way to do that is go through the process of setting up your newsletter distribution and just add this email address to that list of recipients. And then that way you don't have to worry about this. And minimum newsletter frequency has to be monthly. You know, in industry, sometimes there are quarterly newsletters and all that stuff. We don't want to deal with any of that. And of course, you can go to weekly or once in 2 weeks or something like that, whatever suits you. And complete information about the contest is available at this location. You can get that, you can either jot it down or you can get it when the replay comes along, or you can actually search for newsletter contest on d57tm.org and you will find it. The only caveat I want to give you today is that I haven't had a chance to update it precisely. So I put a note in there that it needs to be updated and checked back. So maybe tomorrow it'll be up to date. With that, any questions on the contest portion?
Okay, Venkat, that sounds like a great way to put the skills that everybody's just learned to great use in a contest format. Thank you for that. I'm going to thank our wonderful presenter and very experienced, incredible presenter, Venkat, for doing this masterclass today. The recording link, like I said, will be available on the District 57 website either by tomorrow or the day after, so you can look for it there. And now, a little teaser for our next, I have the wrong date up here, I need to correct that, but our next masterclass will actually be not today, but on May 18th, 2020. It's going to be Ashley Harkness, our past district director for District 57, is going to talk about putting humor in your speeches. And Ashley is with us today, and he's going to say a few words.
Well, thank you very much. So I'll bet somebody in your past has told you, you know, you're awfully funny and you tell jokes very, very well. And that's wonderful. But sometimes you might run into a place where that ain't working the way you want it to. The masterclass that we're going to present basically is going to take you through several subjects that are going to help you to develop your humor so that it is more successful, along with giving you some simple rules that you can apply and make it really work for you. Because humor really, really moves us. Everybody likes to have some kind of humor put into their life. And this will help you to do it too. I look forward to you joining the class and then giving me some input so I can improve my humor. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. And that was just enough time for me to fix my error. So now I've got the right date on the screen. It's on Monday, May 18th. And please do join us. I think it's going to be fabulous. And also, please do check back on the District 57 website for Masterclass, because we are putting together a number of Masterclasses in May and June. All of the conference workshops that were supposed to be presented at the District 57 conference are being converted to Masterclasses. So that page on the District 57 website is your go-to place for all the information about the upcoming Masterclasses, the past ones, the recordings, etc. But please do make it a point to join us for Ashley's. The registration link is live and you can go ahead and register. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We hope to see you at a future masterclass and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Bye.